Hello, and welcome to the How to Play Fantasy World episode of Fire Breathing Kittens. I play Noog in Fire Breathing Kittens, and I will be GMing Fantasy World in January 2024. Fantasy World is a Powered by the Apocalypse fantasy RPG with magic and heroic fighting. It's billed as dramatic fantasy, which means it's about becoming heroes in a fantasy setting and making ourselves care about their story. Like all good Powered by the Apocalypse games, Fantasy World has some core principles that guide how we play. First, there is a one golden rule, which is that if anyone at the table thinks, "This seems wrong, I don't like it," they can and should say so, and only one unhappy voice is a veto. It's like an X card built into the rules of the game. The world itself has some core things that are true. Magic is real, the gods are silent, cities are rare, travel is perilous. Finally, the game master, called the world, has 3 items in their agenda: play to find out, make sense, and rock the boat. Play to find out means there is never a railroad in the game. Instead, we have a setting full of interesting people and ideas and things happening, but those may be discarded at any point when the players go in a different direction. Make sense means all of those interesting people and ideas need to make sense in order to feel like a reasonable world in which the adventurers live. And finally, the adventurers' lives are interesting and exciting, and we accomplish that by rocking the boat. NPCs will act in their own self-interests, and how that interacts with the adventurers is what creates an interesting story. Basic dice mechanics. The basic dice mechanics of a PBTA game, Powered by the Apocalypse game, are that you and your friends describe yourselves doing stuff, and the GM, representing the world, reacts to your actions appropriately. When you get to the point where you trigger what's called a move, you roll 2 6-sided dice and usually add some stat modifier. If you roll a 10 or higher, you succeed at what you were doing, and the move might tell you what happens. If you roll a 7 to 9, you succeed, but at a cost. Usually the move tells you what that cost is. It might be implied in the move, or it might be something really specific. For example, the sway move in Fantasy World says that when used on an NPC, on a 10, you get a yes. On a 7 to 9, you learn what you would need to do to get a yes. If you roll a 6 or less, the world has what's called a world reaction. A world reaction is like a move that the world does. In other games, it's called a GM move or a reaction. Understand that the world never rolls dice. When the world makes a reaction, it's certain and automatically succeeds. A typical reaction might be to reveal an unwelcome truth, or to put the characters at a disadvantage. It's important to know that a 6 or less is not failure. Whatever you were trying to do might still happen. The world is free to describe it happening in a way that you didn't expect and probably don't want. In addition, when you roll a 6, you gain an experience point. So during the play session itself, every time you roll a 6 or less, you gain one of those experience points. Character creation and the fellowship. Characters are drawn from playbooks, which are downloadable from fantasyworldrpg.com. There are 10 playbooks, which are basic archetypes. For purposes of the Fire Breathing Kittens, the characters are assumed to have a couple of sessions, but have not yet earned a full advancement. As a result, they will start with a basic playbook and 10 experience points. Experience points can be used to buy growth points, or they can be spent during the session to gain advantage or use more than one utility move during a long rest. When you create a character in Fantasy World, you download their playbook and then make a few choices about the character. For example, the knight needs to state what chivalric order they belong to, who they are sworn to serve, and what their core value is that gives them some power. The second page of each playbook has their growth moves, which add special moves to the character as they advance. The fellowship is a special way to frame the story in Fantasy World for the group. There are 4 fellowship types, and the idea here is that each playgroup picks a fellowship type, and that's loosely how they're telling their story together. So we don't have one person who is out as the murder hobo in a party of people who are heroes trying to save the realm. There are 4 fellowship types. Shields, who protect a local area. Knives, who pursue personal wealth. Hearts, who are on a single heroic quest. And coins, who go where the job takes them. For the Fire-Breathing Kittens episode, the fellowship is the coins, as they are a group of troubleshooters and problem solvers for hire. Further reading. If you'd like to play Fantasy World, read the Fundamental Knowledge and Essential Mechanics section of the rules, and then read the playbooks and game moves to pick your character and understand what will trigger a move in this game. Remember, anything that isn't a move can still happen. It just doesn't trigger a dice roll. Thanks for listening to this very short rules roundup of Fantasy World.